I'm not here to teach you what to think. I'm here to teach you how to think. What to say on a first date. I am going to give you 101 conversation topics or statements to make when you're on a first date. Now, before we get into that, I'm just going to let you know these are some of the components that you can use to categorize the things that you're going to say on a first date. The first thing, for those of you who are already familiar with the rest of my work, the emotional needs. Some of the things that I'm going to be covering here in 101 things to say on a first date are based on my emotional needs theories, emotional needs of men, and emotional needs of women. The second source of the things that you're going to be talking about on a first date come from your categories. As men, you must have categories that you're going to place women in. As women, you're going to have the different categories of men. The criteria that make up those categories are where you're going to find the sources of a lot of the conversation topics that are going to come up on a first date. Number 3, screening for red flags. When you're on a first date, screening for red flags is a must. Now, if you have lots of relationship experience, you'll already know what red flags are. You'll know what things you cannot deal with, what things you cannot tolerate, and what things that you absolutely will never date again. Part of what you're doing on a first date is spending time screening to make sure that you're weeding out anybody who would flare up a red flag for you. And the fourth consideration is about having fun. Now, this is something that was brought up earlier in this lecture. Although having fun is important on a first date, it cannot be the primary concern. Having fun is one of your lesser concerns on a first date because it's more important to figure out what this person can offer you in your life. Here we go. 101 things to talk about on a first date. Number 1, best childhood memories. Before you go out on a date, make a short list of your best childhood memories. Go through them, think about them. Best childhood memories not only address the emotional need of cater to little girl in her, they also put people in a very good mood. So always make sure you tell at least one story from the category of best childhood memories. Things to say. Number 2, peak life experience. When something really wonderful happened in your life and it was a peak life experience. Now, if off the top of your head you can't think of anything, this is why you need to prepare ahead of time. Everybody has peak life experiences where something really great happened to them at some point in their life. If it helps, write it down. Make a list. Now, let's say you really can't think of too many things and you only have 4 things on your list. Great. Talk about one of them. Talk about one peak life experience, because when you talk about that, it encourages her to talk about that too. When you talk about a best childhood memory, she's going to start coming up with best childhood memories as well. You're the man. You have to go first. You must lead. You must lead by example. Number 3, the emotional needs of men. Number 1, the protection of your reputation. Come up with a story about how you appreciated that somebody protected your reputation and kept you desirable. By telling that kind of a story on a first date, it lets her know that that's what you expect of her. So at some point on your first date, you have to tell a story that exemplifies what you expect and what you identify as protecting your reputation as a man. What to say. Number 4, the emotional needs of a woman. Number 1, the protection of her reputation. Come up with a story where you exemplify to a woman that you would protect her reputation. Now, I'm going to share one of my stories here with you. I met this girl at a house party. We really connected, and it was obvious to everybody that her and I were becoming very, very close. There was another girl at that house party that saw us interact. A little while later, about a week or so later, a few nights later, I ran into the second girl at a club. And the second girl says to me, "Hey, did you go home with that first girl?" Now, my response to her was as follows. Look, I don't know how you were raised, but where I come from, there's certain things that we do not talk about publicly. And at that point, she turns around and says, "Oh, yeah, me too, I totally understand." What I just did in that moment is that I showed girl number 2 that anytime a girl does something with me, it's nobody's business, and I don't talk about it. I protect women's reputations. Make sure you have a story to exemplify how you protect a woman's reputation without actually violating her reputation in the process. Item number 5, deal breakers. What are your deal breakers? And a deal breaker is something that when it happens, you are on the verge of never seeing that person again. Now, if you tell her direct, listen, if you do this, I'm walking, that can actually put a negative feel on the overall date. Sometimes it will be necessary, but a more seductive way to do it is to actually tell the story that shows what your deal breaker is. Item number 6, then and now. You need to talk about something that changed for you over the course of your life. Back then, I would do blank, and now I would do this. What you want to show here is the potential for growth. So this way, if you end up screwing up something on the first date, she already knows because of this story that you're about to tell that you have the capacity to change and grow. You know, once upon a time, I used to believe that men and women were completely equal and there was nothing different about them other than the genders. Then I went through a few bad experiences. I lost my ex-fiancée to one of my best friends. I had my heart broken a few times. I pretty much stopped dating for a while, went into the world of seduction, tried to study and learn everything I could. I'm now in a fantastic relationship. I pretty much changed everything in terms of how I saw men, women, and relationships. I now believe that men and women are equal under the law. They need to have equal rights under the law. But that men and women are different. That's an example of a story of then and now. So somewhere on your first date, you must have a story that exemplifies then and now. Item number 7, base